2025. Please welcome to the stage, Ben Anderson. We're traveling Park City. How you doing?
The next to last lab is it's with great honor that I get to introduce our dear friend Eric Krasno, the Kras, with Peter and Rick of Goose and Taylor and Griff of Dawes. Please give them a hearty Park City
Test. What's up, everybody? Fun summit so far. Yeah, I'm excited to be here with these guys. Oh, they mixed it up a little bit. Oh, okay. They're mixing it up.
Is it not supposed to be like this?
It's a goose sandwich. Lots of slices.
Coming in hot here.
Coming in hot. All right, well, we're just up here. We're all musicians, and as a musician, you start playing music because you're a fan of music. I'm a fan of all these guys up here. So we're just gonna have a conversation and talk a little bit about creative process, talk about being in a band and what that means and how it works, which I think we're all still kind of learning day by day. But I wanted to start with kind of musical beginnings, and I know a little bit about Taylor and Griff, so maybe you guys can talk a little bit about your musical beginnings. Their dad is an amazing singer, musician, actually sang with the band Tower of Power for a minute. Maybe you guys can talk about just like what music meant to you as kids and how you guys started playing.
Sure.
Well, for Griffin and I, we were just raised by a dad who kind of was like feeding us a very strict diet. It was like, here's James Brown, here's Otis Redding, here's the Four Tops, here's the Temptations. You don't need to worry about any of the other stuff. Like you can listen to the Beatles a little bit, but like otherwise, like this is what matters. And it kind of shaped what our criteria was for what we wanted to be, what we wanted to, and the way we learned. Like I feel like a lot of kids that we knew in school were learning in like the studio in the music room or something. And for us, it was like, we're gonna stay up too late tonight and go to the Baked Potato where our dad's playing, and like he's gonna invite us up on a song that we don't know, and we're just gonna like play Cold Sweat or Sex Machine or something. And it was awesome. It was a very different kind of education. But yeah, I mean, the way music was kind of flowing around the house, there was never really a choice made. It was never like, oh, I guess I like singing or I like music. It was really just like, we were born this way and this is what our family does. So when anyone asks like what we do, we just say we play music. It wasn't a thought. And then as time went on, it's like, hey Dad, like, isn't Bob Dylan cool? Like, no. Isn't the Grateful Dead cool? He's like, absolutely not. Like, it was very clear. But like as time went on, he's a very sweet and open-minded person, and he would be vibing on the stuff that we would bring to him as much as we did for the stuff that he brought to us. But yeah, and then once Griffin and I got into a flow of playing together, we're 5 years apart. So I mean, he was probably like the only like 12-year-old talking to his other friends like, isn't Proclaim fucking dope? So like we just kind of shared. Once we were kind of at a certain point in our ages, we were sharing the same trip.
Yeah, Taylor, I mean, led the way for me for sure because he was my cool older brother, and I idolized him and his buds, and I was very impressionable as the 12-year-old is or 10-year-old is, and I think interestingly that you finding your way to like songwriting as the main driver of a lot of what we felt was good music didn't necessarily cohere with what our dad was raising us on. So that is an interesting element.
Yeah, I think like when we were like in a band at 16, I was with this guy Blake Mills. We met at like 12 years old together, and we were just inseparable for the next 6 years. And I learned music shoulder to shoulder with him. And maybe some of you guys might know who he is, but he's an amazing producer, songwriter, and guitar player. But anyway, when we started finding out what we loved, it was it definitely. It shifted. Like at first it was like, how do we just stay on stage and how do I scream into a microphone and turn the guitar up too loud and just act like a fool? And that felt like enough to carry me through life. And then I turned like 18 or something and our band starts, or maybe a little later than that, like early 20s, and the band starts falling apart and he realizes he doesn't want to tour, and I realize I definitely do. And it was like, wow, like just acting like I'm 17 forever actually isn't gonna carry this. I need there to be some like a more foundation to why I want to do this, because I don't know if it might sound strange. I don't know if I love singing alone or guitar playing alone to want to make this my life. But then when I started thinking about the way that Leonard Cohen or Dylan or Joni or Will Oldham or Bill Callahan, and the way that they would mess me up, and the way that they would like not just make me think about a song, but they made me think about my life and how I handle adult situations. Like, well, this is very profound. And in a way, I felt very late to the party. I feel like a lot of people understood the sanctity of songwriting at a younger age, but for me, like what it could mean for shaping the human being that I was, it didn't show up till later. And that coincides exactly with when Dawes started. It was like, oh, actually songs are what matter most. I want to be a songwriter before anything else.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of that bridge that led us there was that there was always an emphasis on, I guess the passion or the intention behind the music being kind of what would shine through. So Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix were my favorite singers, and even though our dad was an acrobatic singer and just so gifted, and there was a lot of that also. Like there was a lot of like, you know, what's the show, American Idol, or like these singers that were just unbelievable. But yet, in his way, he kind of led us, you know, he led us towards being more interested in like, oh, but I love the way that Bob Dylan sings that song or Jimi Hendrix sings that song just because of the way it's conveyed. I didn't have to think too deeply about it, but to me, I think that might have been the road to like, well, you know, understanding why that's the case. And I really to this day don't care so much if someone is just an amazing singer or player. I feel like it extends to instruments too. It's more what's behind it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember this. This is a little digression really quick on what Griff's saying. We hung out with Rick Rubin for like a few days. He was coming to some rehearsals. We were getting to know each other. We had just finished a tour with Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes, who, whether or not you guys are a fan, he's kind of known to like not really like care too much about what notes he's singing. It's more just about the lyric and the intention, and sometimes sounds like he's crying or screaming or something. And Rick was like, how was it with Connor? And we were like, oh, it was great. And he was like, I think he's the greatest singer. And I was like, wow, that's not what I expected him to say. But I think it goes right to what Griffey's saying of like, when someone cares that much, and then you can access that, that's just the coolest thing.
And to cap it off, pass it to these guys. Our dad, despite the household being very musical and that always being a big part of our lives, he did a great job at not pushing us towards it. He just kind of left the door open and for us to walk through ourselves. So there's a ton of music, but I never once felt pressured to be a musician. There was never any. He was never pushing us one way or another. So he was very accepting, both him and my mom, of whatever. And I tolerated the drum kit, and even though I'm sure I sounded really awful for many years. And yeah, it was very. And having a young kid myself now, I think about that a lot. Like I'd love for him to play music, but I'm also like I know that I wouldn't respond to someone being like, "Can your piano lessons or this Wednesday?" You know. So yeah, that's something that I think about. I think you did a good job there.
I'll pass it over to the Goose boys. You guys grew up actually down the road from where I grew up, which we figured out when we were hanging at the Capitol Theater. And you guys went to the same high school, right? But you guys didn't know each other at that point? Is that correct?
No, we were like a couple years apart. So I knew of Rick because he was in other bands. He was sick.
Were you the jazz lord?
I don't think I was the jazz lord. He was definitely the sickest guitar player in high school, from my perspective. But I was 2 years younger than him. I was like, oh my god, this guy's sick. It was a time.
Maybe I'll ask you first, Rick. What did you have a musical household growing up? Like, what sparked your?
Nothing like that. My dad was like a guy from Long Island, so he liked Billy Joel and oddly like smooth kind of jazz guitar players like Larry Carlton and stuff. So he was kind of into that stuff, but no, it really wasn't a prevalent thing in my household. It kind of just, so I guess for me, it kind of came out of nowhere in a sense. It was just always, from a young age, I was like hypersensitive to it. It didn't really matter what it was. Like the Space Jam soundtrack made me feel like a crazy person. It's just like things just affected me pretty deeply. So I was drawn to it for a while. It wasn't until like 6th grade I got a guitar. They rented a guitar from a shop, and I started pretending like I knew what I was doing.
Was there like a record or a band? Like for me, Led Zeppelin was the thing that kind of broke things wide open, and I just wanted to play guitar. Did you have like a band or a record or something that kind of sparked it for you as a player or musician?
Being drawn to guitar, I think it was a lot of like older siblings, friends' older siblings. Seeing them play guitar, I remember I saw this kid who was like my neighbor across the street playing Smells Like Teen Spirit on a Strat one time, and I was like, yeah.
I saw the chicks lining up and then
Yeah, definitely. Whatever that is definitely that. It was like a CKY, he's doing that too. I was like, yeah, it's lights out. So I don't like a record early on. It was mostly songs that were grabbing me. I went to my buddy's wedding last weekend. It was like a bit of a road trip. I pulled up Anspach's 20's first record, and it holds up. I love it. That was, I think, again, a neighbor. Yeah, Rob Thomas. Yeah, like a neighbor. When I was in 5th grade or something, showed me that album, and he was like, everyone in middle school, like, this is what we listen to. I was like, sick. And then it just took over. I learned every note of that album. It just, yeah.
I just did that with Ben Folds, and that was, when you find, because sometimes that music, you're like, is this just nostalgia that's getting me, or does it actually hold up? And it's a nice feeling when you put it on. You're like, oh, this is like still rap. Yeah, you got a lot to say.
It goes both ways. Some of the stuff you go back, you're like, oh yeah, that was 11, And then some stuff is like, no, this still slaps.
Peter, what about you? Did you have music in your house growing up? But what was your spark?
Yeah, for me, so I grew up in a very musical household. My mom is a music teacher and has been for many, many years. And she's a great singer and piano player. And then my sister also, was like doing plays and musicals in high school. And she's much older than me, like 13 years older than me. So when I was just a baby, I was going to her musicals and plays at her high school. And I would just like sit down in the orchestra pit and just kind of exist there while she would practice or while I'd perform, whatever. And that was kind of where it all started for me. And I just remember my mom had music on all the time. She was singing to me all the time. And it was just the Beatles and tons of musical stuff, like stuff from Carousel and Oklahoma and all those things. So yeah, we were just singing and dancing a lot when I was younger, and it was really just a beautiful time,
You still have a, is there a strain of you that still just loves musicals and they go?
Yeah, most definitely. I think I love going to Broadway and love musicals. I think in general, whenever I hear any of the songs, like from when I was a kid, it's just, it really like brings out the most emotion in me of any music or song I can listen to.
I don't know what happened to what my parents did to me, but the musicals had like an opposite effect on me. I can recognize that it's great, obviously, but if anything, like the Billy Joel's a perfect example, he's a genius. But anytime I listen to it, if it's at all like tilting towards having that Broadway thing, I have this inherent like, nope, I don't like this. But I know it's just my own shit. So, so I need whatever you got.
I think it's just, I was just looking up to my sister a lot, you know, and that was what she was into and what she was doing, and that was the biggest inspiration for me at the time. And then my mom tried to force piano lessons onto me when I was like 8 years old, and I just wasn't having it. So it was like, kind of like, I could relate a little bit to what you were saying earlier, of like, you can't really make anyone play an instrument or be like into it, you know, you really have to let them find their way. And then it was Led Zeppelin for me. That really, I was like, I'm gonna start playing guitar now, Mom. That's what we're gonna do.
There's something about finding music. It's funny because having met your dad, it was like, 'cause he was all about R&B and soul music. And you guys, I mean, not that you guys don't love that music, but you guys kind of found something else. For me, my dad played, and my dad played so much like jazz and R&B, which I eventually fell in love with. But at the time, finding my own music that made him go, what is that? You know, like I'd crank Led Zeppelin and be like, what the? You know, and there's something about finding that thing that's yours, you know, as a kid that really makes you passionate about playing and having a thing.
Yeah, there's also something like I joke that there's like back to the point about like nostalgia. Some of that, it's like Pavlovian. Some of these bands that just ran down our throats when we were kids, and I feel like a band like Steely Dan, for instance, I have no objectivity when it comes to where that music exists, if it's good, if it's bad, because I hear it and immediately I'm just like, this is the best band I've ever heard in my life. I love every note of every album, and I can sing all of it to you, but like, in some way, it's like he's like
Let's hear it.
it's destroyed objectivity, and I think that's actually like something that I struggle with as a musician, listening to music at all. Like I often struggle to actually hear something like I did when I was a kid, or like my wife would, who's not a musician, you know. Interested to get you guys' thoughts on that, but yeah, sometimes I feel like it's a vocational hazard where I'll put on music and I'm immediately thinking about how, you know, how certain things were recorded, or you know, any aspect of the recording. It's tough for me to just kind of like take a bird's eye view.
I definitely trust my wife on music like more than me, because I just think too hard about these little tiny nuances and mixes and how they did this, how they did that. And she can just like listen to me, this is cool, this is bad, so I love that. I always play something for her to be like, okay, is this cool? And she'll be like, no, that's not cool. That doesn't make me feel good, you know. So both Dawes and Goose, you guys have really carved your own paths as bands and really developed a hardcore fan base. Like you go to a Dawes show and people are just like singing every word with all of their heart. And at Goose shows, people know every single thing that's going on and follow every song and what are they going to do this and do that. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, honing that, you know, and figuring out a way to create a platform in the very beginnings, and like, are you making really conscious steps along the way to build that fan base, and then once it's there, how do you nurture that? You know, I know that's a long and kind of robust question, but maybe Taylor and Griffin, you guys can talk a little bit just the beginnings of Dawes and how that kind of came to be.
I think, for me, I think the kind of fan you are, if you're a professional musician, I think the kind of fan you are will dictate the kind of artistic world you create. And I think the kind of fan that I've always been is anytime that there's an artist that has an entire universe to their name. Like when I think of like Willie or Zappa or definitely Dylan is an easy example. Like anyone where you like look at like on Wikipedia, like how many studio records are there? It's like, oh, there's 140 Willie Nelson albums. And I'm not exaggerating. It's insane how many albums he has. And same with Zappa, same with Dylan. And like same with all the Live Dead stuff. Like anytime I can get totally lost in a world where I will never know the complete outreaches of, I just get so intoxicated by that. So I'm always chasing like what's another artist where I can really lose myself in the material and find unearth little corners. And that has made that such a passion for us of like, how do we get these records and just fucking stack them? How do we get so, like, I want to keep writing music, I want to keep putting out music, so where we have like 15 or 20 or 25, we have 9 now, and to me, I'm like, that's nothing. Like, you know, like there's all these other favorites of ours that went so far beyond that, and I don't want to suggest that I'm a quantity over quality guy. I always want it to be good, but I also feel like we are multitudinous, and in order to express the fullness of our points of view or ourselves, there's just no end to like how to express that. And so I think we're addicted to just kind of continuing to put ourselves across, and that I feel like, you know, for our fan base, like for our relationship to our audience, it's really inspiring, because, you know, even if it's 500 people in a room, it's like I can go into any part of our catalog and sing anything, and I can like count on someone to bail me out if I'm forgetting a lyric or something. Like it's a very connected experience, and so I'm really grateful for that. It's not like we thought about that, and answer your question. It's not like I thought like, let's make music for nerds. Like, it was just like, this is the kind of fan I am, and so I want to be one of those people I'm a fan of, and I'll never quite achieve that because no one ever does. But that's I think that now looking back after 9 records and trying to make some kind of sense out of like, why are we the way we are? Why is our relationship with our fans the way it is? That's the best I can come up with.
Yeah, I think I like that idea too of like, it's like I think a good analogy for putting out a lot of records or having an endless amount of material is like baseball as compared to basketball, whereas every game is less meaningful because there's so many games, and that's not to say that we wouldn't do our best to just make every recording as rad as it can be, but that's never, like, you're listening for a different reason, I think, or when you're Bob Dylan making New Morning or something, like he's writing on the strength of the tunes, and the music, the recordings themselves aren't overly considered. I think what they're trying to capture there is very much that the essence of whatever's happening, the first impression that these musicians are, you know, coming at this music with. I like that, and I wish we could do that more frequently. You guys do a good job of it, but it's just like the music industry, not to make this conversation, not to take it down on the conversation here, but it really like constrains our ability to do that. And there used to be this, you know, the relationship between how musicians get paid and music is never linear. I go here and I play a show and I make money, as opposed to what it used to be, which is musicians actually are rewarded for making music, and there's royalties, and that's like pretty much disappeared, even for artists that are really streaming, at least to an extent that enables the artist to make 2 records a year, to not have to worry about touring as they're not making records to tour. They're touring almost as an afterthought. It's about the records. And I'm not saying like, man, I wish we just could make more money making records. It's not that. It's more, I wish we could be comfortable enough to just, like financially, to just be like, let's not do that 3-week run. Let's just sit around the studio every day and work on the next record. I'd love to be releasing 2 records a year. These dudes just dropped another one like a few days ago. Which is so envious of it. I think in this, especially with the music that we make, it's rewarding. Like the fans reward that, and yeah, it's a struggle, I think, and it's just part of the journey is trying to create that dynamic. And we were getting there. We lost our studio in January in the fires in LA, and that was part of the thing. Was like, oh yeah, this is the space. This is going to be where we can really just dig in and work. I mean, we have kids now too. He's got 3 of them, and so that's also like a complicating factor. But the idea is to get there sooner rather than later, and be able to really just work and not have to worry about, grinding in order to keep the lights on.
Speaking of grinding, I'm going to talk to the Goose Boys for a quick second because you guys have had an insane amount of output in the last, whatever it is, 5-6 years. And specifically during the pandemic, I first saw you guys at Playing in the Sand in 2019. And actually, you know what? That was probably a good time. My buddy Jay Blakesberg hooked me up with some photos, some secret photos that we're going to check
Cool
out.
remote for that?
And can we cue those up? Or do I press something? There we go. So this is Goose opening for Pigeons playing ping pong, is that right? At Great American Music Hall. Is that 2019? Ben, Baruch.
2020.
2020, Jay.
February, 3 weeks before the pandemic.
3 weeks before the pandemic. And then this is Playing in the Sand, which we were at. I think that was short. Church was on fire. Rocking the jorts. Suck it, baby. Let's go. Nice one. I think that's the same. And then this is clearly a big. Is this Goldsmith, Jay?
Yeah.
So that's just a few years later, I believe.
Goose was 2022, Colorado.
Yeah, and then look at that. That's pretty insane. Yeah, I'm just going to show a few of these because it's fun. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, wait, back. Shit. Sorry. Okay. So talk a little bit about what happened between that first photo and some of these other photos. I know that you guys, was it conscious that during the pandemic and during lockdown, you guys, used the internet in a really creative way and came up with some really cool ideas? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, who came up with those concepts? Talk about some of the things you did during that time.
We kind of just caught a wave. Like, we had been building it for a while. 18, 19, Peter joined the band. We kind of it was the metaphor that always comes to my mind is like we both had like the dudes with like knives in their teeth, like scaling a wall. It felt like that. We were just kind of like, obviously not gonna do, but we were in it all of a sudden, and we're working on building this thing, and we're in a flow with just working on ideas about how we can build our little world. It's the same thing that these guys are talking about in a microcosmic kind of way. That was the intent, was to we're living it was the time of the internet, so that was the place to do it. So the impetus was that. It was just how can we create a feeling in this digital world of our little band and our songs and our whatever the hell we're doing, and it carried over. The 2019 things started to like change pretty quickly. Then the pandemic hit, and we were just in it. And at that time, we had a lot more bandwidth, and like all of our energy was going into just coming up with ideas, and we weren't getting bombarded with all kinds of other stuff. We had a lot of. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like there was 4 or 5 months where every day I pretty much woke up and I was like, okay, either write songs, work on the album, or like think of something to do with the band today. And it was just like out of nowhere. You just had to think of stuff to do.
To not have kids.
It was lucky that even Rick and I were living together at the time, because we had an album that we were working on, Shenanigans Nightclub, for several years, even before I joined the band. It was being worked on, so it was like never going to get done because we kept having to do all these weekend runs, which when you're a young band, it's like going out and playing the weekend is the right time to play, because that's when you get the most people coming out. So we were doing a bunch of weekend runs, and it was off the road, back on the road constantly, and then just to have that time to work on that record was amazing. It was super critical for us, I think.
And were you guys getting together and like having think tanks on like, okay, what can we do? What can we do with the internet, and how can we build this audience? Like, was it a conscious like group effort? Like how was that going down?
I mean, yeah, it was just like, how can we make this more interesting? Because obviously at that time everyone was doing live streams, and we had gone through and done a bunch of them and had people in our crew. We were lucky to have creative people with cool eyes and stuff like that, doing handycam stuff and just cool lights and like trying to make them as interesting as we could. But then after a while, it was the summer rolled around and it was still just we're doing live streams, and then the conversation was like, okay, we're gonna do a live stream tour. It's like that sounds so boring. We're just gonna keep playing the same stuff in the same room over and over again. It's like, how can we make this more interesting? And trying to put ourselves on the other side of that. Like, how can this be more engaging? That's where the bingo thing came from. Like that was a joke from, a lot of it comes out of just us joking around about stupid ideas that are, maybe we should just do that, So yeah, the bingo thing was really fun, and it worked really well, like probably way better than we expected it to. And it kind of just kept going from there. It was like, all right, we kind of have like our own TV channel for 2 weeks here. What else should we put on it? And it was such a strange poignant time for so many reasons, but it was like, friend's older brother that has a farm in his backyard. Let's go and do like a video walking through what he does there. And like we did some like yoga videos and some jazzercise videos, cooking classes. It was just we just like went in on our thing. And it was really fun. I think in a lot of ways we like just want to be in that, doing that like all the time. But,
did you guys have any bands or artists or other that you kind of model after in terms of like building a world? Like Taylor had a good point of like building this world for your fans. I feel like you guys do such a great job of that. Is there other artists you think about when you're kind of designing that, or is it just like you guys are just in it creating?
He made such a good point about that I never really thought about it directly in that way. But the kind of fan you are has to define with the kind of thing you create. I personally don't feel like I have any perspective on the world we create because we're too close to it, So whether or not it's working, I have no idea. But as like a fan, there's so many, like I love getting lost in things like that, and there's so many different ways that happens. And it's kind of, we were just talking about this earlier today, like what separates that? It's like, the art, you stumble onto some music, you're really impressed by it, you're really drawn to it, and you're like, this is great, and then you spend more time with it and you lose interest quickly. And it's like, what separates that from something that just like becomes so immersive and sustainable for you? And I was like, yeah, it's that Lord of the Rings thing. I don't know. And they're like, what? I was like, I don't know how else to explain it. But it's not just musical artists. It's all kinds of things. Like, a TV show that builds a really strong world is way more compelling. It's the same concept for a lot of different things.
There's a lot of like one season shot TV shows that don't really carry on, and there's so many that are like you don't even know what it's about, and then like a few seasons later you're like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
To that point, do you guys feel compelled one way or another to lean into musically what's happening? Like if you're making a new record, because obviously we're all naturally evolving as musicians and human beings, and so when you get in the studio and it's been a few years, let's say, like things are going to sound a little different. But given that you're talking about sustainability and trying to like carry the thing forward, do you ever feel like, maybe we should keep trying to let's keep it in this same lane to an extent and keep doing what we know is rewarding for our fans? Or like, do you ever have to temper that creative spark that might take you in a different direction, even if it's like, this is going to be a totally different Goose record? Does that freak you out at all? Do you ever feel like, we should probably actually keep it in the safe space?
I hope we don't. That sucks.
It's hard to avoid thinking that way, I think, but at the same time, I think it's so much of it just boils down to instincts. Like if there's this really strong instinct to go in a certain direction, then I think that has to be honored,
Sorry.
If
I may say about you guys, I feel like, I'm sure some of you guys will agree with me, like I feel like something you guys do so well is that you do follow those instincts. There's always so many projects or iterations or different venues or avenues in which to experience who you all are. And I feel like I feel like that for most bands, it's like, that's a cool idea, but I'm not gonna do it. And with you guys, it's like, we are gonna do that. We are gonna do this acoustic thing, or this trio version, or solo records, or side projects, or whatever. And it's just, I feel like for the kind of, I imagine, at least for me, the kind of fans that you have, like that's like such a massive part of the equation of like, Goose is not just these studio records. Goose is not just these live shows or these tours. Goose is also like the different branches that break away from the main roots, and it's something that I marvel at, because it's something that's, like I was talking about earlier, like that's the shit that I want to experience, whether as a fan or as an artist.
Yeah, to that, to add on to that, like this, I feel the same way. I think he's totally right, and I was just saying this the same backstage with TM, but from my perspective as a fan of y'all, it feels like, man, these boys are just hitting it all the time, and we tour a lot, you know. I mean, historically, a ton. So I know what that takes out of you, and does it feel like cultivating it in that way that Taylor's talking about requires your physical presence? It requires the grind. It requires the travel, the whole thing. Like it feels like that to me a little bit. It's like, to keep this thing alive and growing in the age in which social media is the main driver, or one of them certainly. There's more involvement outside of the music than there ever has been, at least in the 17 years I've been doing this.
I think one thing that definitely helps the growth of our band is just us all being together. And I think, but better than anything else, just when we're all together, things happen. You know, we'll grow as a unit, and we'll be able to talk about ideas, and things happen. And we can film videos, and we can record music and practice. But I think as long as we're all like together, working on stuff, that it doesn't necessarily have to be on the road. I think that is probably what keeps the thing going the most.
Often it's not on the road when that is the best.
Totally.
When we're just, I don't know, whatever maybe working on a record or whatever, when we're together and not traveling, touring.
Right.
That's when a lot of great things happen, I think, for sure.
It's such a like romantic and awesome thing that I see with you dudes. And like when you came to our Ridgefield Playhouse show, and you were like, yeah, we're just like audio rehearsing. And I was like, man, that's fucking awesome. Like, we had that, but it was when I was 20, and it's totally inconceivable at this point for where our lives are at. And now it's just us two that are really like the band. I mean, I love it. I think that's all to say. Like, it's amazing to watch, and I think it's a beautiful thing. We'll like it.
To be fair, we're rehearsing for something. We also romanticize about the like, yeah, it'd be sick if we could just all hang out and practice and play together because we had nothing better to do. It's like, that doesn't happen. We're not there, you know. It's like, life is happening for sure.
The first solo record was at my mom's house. We all lived there, so she wasn't very happy about it. Until we opened for the Stones, and she got to meet Keith Richards, but that's pretty good. Who also was living in Wilton and called Connecticut the home of the blues and made fun of me. Anyway, getting back to it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about collaboration because, well, first off, the reason that I know all of you probably is because of Phil Lesh. And if you just say Grateful Dead around here, you get applause. Right? Oh, yeah. No, for real, Phil was a huge connector, and I mean, I think I met some of you outside of that, but I've played with most of you guys in that setting. So we'll get to Phil a little bit, but I know with Dawes, you guys have collaborated with so many heroes, current, old school, from Stephen Stills to, like they opened the Grammys this year with Brittany Howard, Brad Paisley. Who else was on that? It was like insane. Can you guys talk about like some of like a couple highlight moments that kind of, just where you were just pinching yourself, or some takeaways that you got working with some of those legends, those great artists?
Yeah, I think when we made our first record in 2009, I guess recorded in like 2008-ish, one thing that is pretty hard to miss if you're listening to it is how obsessed we were with the band. And I think like after watching The Last Waltz like the millionth time and listening to Blonde on Blonde and trying to figure out when it's Robbie and when it's someone else, or just kind of going through their whole trip and like really romanticizing what they meant, even down to the name of their band. It meant so much to us, and then that became part of the mission statement for us. Like, how do we be a band where we have our tunes and we stand behind them, and that's very much who we are, but how do we play with others, because that helps us constantly learn and grow and discover different aspects of what we can do. And so that was something that we did on like a small scale initially, where we would back up the band we were opening for, back up the band that was opening for us, and just like local places, like bands that you would have never heard of. And then that grew into people just kind of recognizing that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got offered to do an In-Ward tour, and we'll be In-Ward's band, and then we'll open, and then that became Connor, and then it became like wild legend heroes of ours that like we really weren't expecting to ever cross paths with, let alone to be in their band and learn their songs. But then it's like Jackson and Fogarty and then Phil and Robbie Robertson to make it full. So yeah, Joni, and it just like pretty outrageous stuff. Like, and to a point where when people ask like, who else would you like to collaborate with? I'm like, any answer to that will be indecent, because we've been the luckiest musicians ever in that respect, I believe. And so yeah, it was just like this. And all of a sudden that turns into its own snowball of like, oh yeah, are you some like post-60 legend? Like, you need a young band? Like, call Dawes. And obviously we were basking in it. It was probably more meaningful than anything in terms of what you, as you know, the kid, the 15-year-old inside you, and you think to yourself like, what would be the most meaningful thing to happen to me musically? And I think those moments are the answer. More so than like, we sold this many tickets or had this many records sold or whatever. It's just like, so-and-so told me they liked my song. They taught me how to write songs indirectly. And so that just kind of took on a life of its own. And yeah, like I said, like we just kind of kept learning, whether it was direct musical stuff. Like Phil taught us so much just with the kind of, the direction he would give in rehearsals and stuff, or when we would be preparing, I would ask him like, oh Phil, for this, when we do, you know, Bertha or whatever, like, who's taking that solo? And he'd say, all of us and none of us. Wow, there's a lot in that. And it made a whole lot make a lot more sense to me. And then otherwise, it was just evidence of dedication, like being around Ben Montench from the Heartbreakers, and he's played on our second record, and he played on this song of ours called, two songs, but the first one he played was a song called Time Spent in Los Angeles, and he said, play it through one time so I can just hear it, and then I'll play it. And we played it through this system form, and then he just sat there with his eyes closed listening. He wasn't even touching the organ. And then it ended, and the only thing he said was, I love music so much. And it was so inspiring, because even like we made that record in 2010, I was 25, something like that. And I was like, just watching him say that, like I already feel so cynical and so unwilling to purely enjoy music for its like divine properties. And here he is, well into his 60s, able to access that. And that was something that like kind of blew my mind. Or doing these like things at Largo, and all these young songwriters are like clunking their way through some pretty like mediocre tunes, and like myself included sometimes. And Jackson Browne, when he was there, you couldn't get him in a conversation because he'd always be side stage like watching for a great song. And it's stuff like that that I think I gleaned more from than anything else. It was just this like, wow, true dedication and true like evidence of the lifer is what I always would be looking for. And I feel like it's moments like those that really show that to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally right. And just one thing I would say is, I think it's taught me to be open-minded, because I think the saying goes, there's many ways to skin a cat. Never knew what that meant. It's weird. I mean, I know what the implication is, but it's totally weird. Can I say that? But it's true, and like, there's certain people that you work with.
Give us some of those ways.
Like, one thing I think that I've been afforded because of my role as not the predominant songwriter in the band, it's like I've been able to just go play with other people and get to, get some insight into like the way that they do things, and just playing on records. And it never ends. It's every session is completely different for any number of reasons, and it's, I think it's just, there's no way to wrap your head around how something's gonna go down. Like, going into a session with a preconceived idea as to how it's gonna go or what you want it to be is so foolish to me. That's inspiring, playing, like, there's certain people that do it this way in the computer, it's very regimented, and then there's John Ryan, and he's literally just constantly exuding music on every instrument, and there's everything in between, and that's been very valuable to me, is just to go in not expecting anything, and on stage a little bit, I think, because of the type of music we make, we can apply that a little bit too. Just if you keep your ears open, it's going to be different every night.
Amazing. So I'm getting the flashing numbers, which I think means we've got to get a couple questions in. Maybe you can talk real quick, Rick, about playing with Phil, just because that was a fun little bromance that we had on stage.
It was awesome.
It was amazing.
There's a few moments, my favorite moments. One moment, like, it was first set, one of those shows, and he wasn't feeling it. Felt like we weren't linked up, and just the way, like, his disposition was he was so soft-spoken and so kind and open, and I just loved the way that he kind of made that known. He went to Graham and said, "Dynamics, pass it on." Graham came to me and was like, "Dynamics, pass it on." The keys was like, "Dynamics, pass it on." And I was like, "All right, cool, let's listen."
One time we were about to play Dark Star, and James goes to me, James Casey, one of my favorite people that ever lived. He was like, "What key is this in?" I look back at him, and Phil looks at me and he goes, "Dark Star has no key." I kept that one with me. Okay, we got a few minutes for questions. How are we doing the questions? Someone's got to go on with the microphone, right? Okay. Okay. How about you, right? There.
Hi, so this kind of a little bit has to do with Phil and the Grateful Dead, but so Phil's new album, Rick and Peter, which is amazing, by the way. So in Jed Stone, I've heard a lot of people on the internet acting like it could be a sequel or a spiritual successor to Tennessee Jed. Do you have any?
I love that for them.
First, I want to thank all of you for sharing your time. I've got a quick question, or a favor really. You said you're friends with Jay, and he gave me my 15 minutes. He selected my photo this month in Relix from the fan photo contest, the Dickie Best tribute of Dwayne coming out of the smoke, and so thank you. And I've got a question for Dawes, but a request for Goose. So I grew up with the Dead, I'm a Trey fan, but I skipped over Fish. You guys re-engaged me back into jam, so thank you. And your merch guy turned me on to Dogs in a Pile, so I'm following them like I used to follow you in Small. And I'm a Connecticut boy, and my request is, can we hear a little Whalers theme song?
I guess we'll see. Thank you.
And Dawes, did you get to the October Martin Scorsese, Robbie Robertson tribute, which was 5 hours, 2 10-minute breaks? Because that documentary is going to be insane.
Did we go to the actual? You're saying We go to the
Yeah, before.
We were asked, and we were out of
You were
town.
on
I was so bummed.
It was incredible.
I mean,
It was like dates that we were begging our manager, like, can we just get out of this? And it's like, it's pretty unprofessional. I'm like, okay, fine. So yeah, we unfortunately we couldn't be there.
We got another one.
Hi, so my name's Jackson, and all of you are fantastic songwriters, and I have a question as a guitarist and a songwriter myself who is beginning to record my own stuff, beginning to try and really put myself out there and build a career. And that is when I tend to write songs, you know, writing a bunch of different genres, and some, I guess lyrically they all feel similar, but from a musical perspective, sometimes they can feel a little janky together. And I want to ask, as two half-bands who are up here, who are great songwriters and definitely have a particular sound to what they like to write, or a particular style of song, if that makes sense. If you have any tips for maybe getting those different songs together, and maybe at different times, maybe years apart when you're at different points in your journey.
I personally think lean into how different it all is, because I think your essential voice will kind of rise out of that. Like when I was younger and starting out or whatever, be like, I want to write an I like Elvis Costello. I'm just going to try to write an Elvis Costello song. And whether or not that was releasable or good or whatever, that was such a lesson for me, because it forced me deep down into how his songs function. So it would help. And then I was like, oh, now I want to be David Bowie. And if you listen back to that stuff, it's a bunch of rips, and it's not great. But as the time went on, I felt like I had this intimate understanding of how each of these artists that kept biting would work to a point where, like, eventually, without even thinking about it, because I actually believe it's something you can't think about, your voice will just kind of be there. It'll just be what's left after kind of allowing in all of these other voices. I hope that's reassuring to some degree, but yeah, I don't think it's something to avoid. I think it's something to go at.
I think you'd be surprised too, that he's right, that it, like, there is a quality that pervades all of it, that is you. And I think if that's something you're trying to get after, I think you can kind of lean on personnel. Like if you have some friends that you play music with and you like what they do in their respective instruments, or a producer you like working with, I think getting those people together and trying to make a record is going to give it a cohesive quality.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a lot of things that feel different coming to you, through you, that's an amazing thing. You know, like the conceptualization of your through line, what your sound is, what your thing is not really, in my opinion, something that should be really conscious. It just happens, you know. So I think when I'm working on things, I think when something feels different than anything I've done before, that's the goal. That's what we're chasing, you know. Is the more broad and the more different expressions there can be, the better, because it's all going to be you ultimately.
Yeah, don't judge yourself too much at this point. Just get it out there and just do it for the love of writing, because ultimately that's what's going to bring you the most satisfaction. Even if you have a career and you have songs out there and people like them, the best thing for me still is writing music. So that feeling of it is like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. So just do it for that.
It's also how you grow, is pushing yourself to uncomfortable territory. You know, that's you become bigger within yourself when you push up on those boundaries of what you think you are, or what you think your sound is, or anything like that. You know?
Just to add to that, I would say doing it and working the muscle of writing and just doing it over and over and over, getting the songs done, recording them, playing them, you'll just keep evolving. I think we got time for one more.
I've got the microphone. First of all, thank you guys. This has been incredible. And my question is really about the songwriting and the creative process, specifically for Rick and Peter. The first time I saw you guys was at Goldsmith in Charleston, and it absolutely blew my mind. I mean, I was completely flabbergasted by your band and have been following you guys ever since. A lot of your songs songs like "Give It Time" and "Born" really seem to me almost to be spiritual anthems. Those songs touch me in a way that, and I think to a lot of people. And I was curious, when you're writing a song like that, is the intention behind it to elicit, a sense of passion, a sense of community, a sense? I mean, when you're writing those songs, do you understand that they're going to have that kind of impact on people?
I didn't know. I think I think it comes down to those are the things that inspired me. For a lot of my 20s and the way my life went, spirituality became something that was very inspiring to me. And when I was learning new things or being exposed to new ideas in that world, it opened up things creatively for me. So I think there was, I guess earlier there was a period in my life where I was trying to do that, and it was just the worst. It's just like the worst songs. So yeah, that was the big lesson I kind of learned the hard way. Was contriving things in that way and trying to write that way, even though the intent is good. It's coming from the right place. It's just not. It doesn't work. So it has to be. Chasing honesty is the best thing you can do.
Mitarotonda, Anspach, Goldsmith, and Griffin, Goldsmith.